Next up, we will be checking in with Alec for a very special interview.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with a very special guest today, Elizabeth Isles. And she is here from the city of Dublin. She has stopped by to tell us about the Kolb House historic site. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's get started from the beginning. What is the Kolb House?
The Kolb House was the home of one of Dublin's first families. They arrived in the 1880s, originally ran our general store and lived right behind there, but they wanted to become farmers, and so they bought 350 acres and built the house that we call the Kolb House and lived there for many, many years. And when the last person passed away in 2006, and this is the last person in the Kolb family that lived in the house, they asked the city of Dublin if they would like to take the house and use it as one of their historic resources. And the city of Dublin quickly changed their plans a little bit and adapted the house, and it's now a historic house museum.
That's very cool. How did you get involved in the Heritage Center and, more importantly, the Kolb House?
Well, I've always been interested in history. When I was a kid, I would go to living history days, and I was one of those kids that really got into it. I liked meeting people that could do the traditional crafts and the old lifestyles, and so I've always been drawn in that direction. I studied history and have worked in this field for about 25 years. I came to work for Dublin in 2001, and they have the Dublin Heritage Center, which had the Murray Schoolhouse and St. Raymond Church and a pioneer cemetery, and they had a plan to develop additional parkland, and so within that space, the Kolb House was moved onto that space. So that's how I got involved with the Kolb House.
That's interesting. Can you share some stories about the buildings or about the project?
Okay, well, it's kind of a typical story of California's early farming history. And so Mr. Kolb came from Germany when a lot of other immigrants came to America. They went and settled in Philadelphia, which had a German town. Lots of German immigrants were living there, but they made their way west. There was this California fever that was going around because California had so much to offer, so much land, so much fresh air, and so the family made their way out here. Philip Kolb settled here in Pleasanton, and he established a general store on Main Street, and the building is still there. And his little brother, George Kolb, swept the floors and learned the business of running a general store. So when Dublin's store became available, he bought that store, and he started raising his family there, and then went on to farming. And it is a very interesting story because it's the American dream, coming to America and becoming successful and having your own property. And it's great that Dublin now has that story and can share it with everyone.
And can you tell us why the Kolb legacy is so important to Dublin?
Well, as I said, Philip Kolb is really important to Pleasanton. He's the big brother. He owned lots and lots of real estate here in Pleasanton. And his brother, George Kolb, is important to Dublin because he ran the general store. He established his farm, which at that time wasn't Dublin. He helped establish the post office in Dublin and was on the school board. So he was a person who really cared about the town and the community that he lived in, and he got involved. And we want to continue that legacy and their family's history.
We heard that you had to relocate the Kolb buildings from Pleasanton.
Yes.
And was that hard to do?
Well, there are companies that can move buildings, and so we found a very capable company that not only moved the Kolb House, and the Kolb House is a 1911 craftsman bungalow. It was cut into 3 pieces, and so on 3 different trucks, they took the pieces of the building and moved them over. They also moved over a great big hay barn and what we call the Sunday school barn, and the old house. So there were a number of buildings that were moved over, and they were placed on the property exactly as they had been at the original site. So we really want to give people an authentic view of how a farm was laid out and how they functioned.
Wow.
Yeah.
Switching gears for a moment, is there any way that the youth can get involved in the Dublin Historic Park?
Of course, of course. Now, there are a number of ways that youth can get involved. Right now, we have a team of high school students that are helping with the Kolb collection. And what that means is that every artifact, every piece of personal property, from shaving kits to cups to dishes. Everything that you see inside the museum is cataloged, and that way we can keep track of its condition and where it is. And so this team of high school students are putting itty-bitty numbers on every single item and then entering it into a database, and that really helps us. We also have youth volunteers that work in our giving tours, as greeters, working on special events. We have lots of fairs throughout the year and public events, and we need as many volunteers as we can get. So we certainly welcome young volunteers.
Before we go, is there any place that the public can go to find out more information about upcoming events and just the history of the Kolb House?
Absolutely. They can go to the City of Dublin website click on Heritage and Cultural Arts, and we should have all of our listings and news flashes and everything you need to know. And then come on down to the site. It's open. The grounds are open every day from sunrise until sunset, and the museums are open Wednesday through Sunday from 1 until 4, and it's free admission, so come on down. Check us out.
All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Alec.
And now back to the studio.
Thank you, Alec, for that great interview. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short message.